Hello and welcome to the Growing Green podcast. Your host, Jeremiah Jennings, is the owner of Growing Green Landscapes in Birmingham, Alabama, and has a passion for growing the entrepreneurship community for those who are young in business. Being a business owner isn't easy, especially in the early years, and that's why in this show we dive into a wide range of topics covering all the challenges small business owners deal with. Even if your company is generating $1 million or more, the stories from our great guest and Jeremiah's own firsthand experiences will propel your business forward. And now, here's your host, Jeremiah Jennings.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode today here on the Growing Green podcast. This is your host, Jeremiah Jennings, and I'm very excited to be coming to you today with another great guest interview for you. We love guest interviews because we just like to bring the most value that we can, and by having guests come on and share their other businesses and stories along the way, then I believe that is what grows the community, because people just learn and grow from hearing other people's stories. And so especially this time of year, spring is here, it's upon us, and so we want to hear what everyone else is doing. And so this is not going to be actually a landscaping company, but actually our bookkeepers. Joey and Megan Coberly are joining us today with the Landscaping Bookkeeper. How are y'all doing this morning, guys?
We're great, Jeremiah. How are you?
Doing good. We were just talking before we hit record about technical difficulties. You know how all that stuff goes. It nothing ever works the way it's supposed to, but you just live and you learn. Like I'm not a technician. If we ever got to that point, I would just.
If that was one thing I could have in like my back pocket everywhere I go, I would totally do it. I pay for it. My brother is IT, so I'll call him, but the minute we got off the phone, I can't remember a word he said. It just, that information does not make sense to my brain.
100%. Yeah, I do not envy guys that, like, when I go to conferences and things, like the audio and the video guys, I'm like, no, don't envy you at all, because
you've gotten enough of a taste to know that's not you.
That is not me at all. So this is, if I can get a headset on and a mic in my head, in my hand, then I'm good. Let everyone else do the rest. So,
same.
Well, good deal, guys. Well, thank y'all for joining us. Y'all been on the show before. Everyone knows who you are, most likely, but let's just kind of walk through the Landscaping Bookkeeper. There's been a lot of changes since we talked last. It's been a couple months, probably, I don't even know, maybe close to a year since we talked, as far as on the podcast. And so back when we talked, we kind of teased and prefaced what y'all had coming down the pipe for this fall and now into the spring. And so you're rolling those services out. There's a lot of new things that have been changing. And just so tell us a little bit about what y'all are doing now and how your business has evolved in the last 12 months.
Let me take that one.
You want to take it? Yeah, go for it.
All right. So originally when we started doing bookkeeping, the goal was obviously just to do bookkeeping, but we've always had, kind of a end goal with it too, where we can, use the bookkeeping for actually, valuable information. It's because, bookkeeping is valuable for any service industry or any industry in general, but, being able to use those numbers to accomplish a goal is really where we're trying to go with this. So
yeah, we've talked a lot about what's that next service look like. So, we knew bookkeeping was the start. We knew we needed to get that in order, have a right place for it, do it well, because I was a teacher before. He did hands-on. I mean, we were brand new to the financial world in that sense, the academic side of it. So we knew that was the start of it, but we've always been talking and putting things together of what's next. And so for a long time, we thought, well, maybe we could do this, maybe we could have a community. And we kind of came to the sense that our 1-hour meetings with our clients every single month are our core service. It is very important that we have that. It's important also to the organization. You wouldn't think, but because you're moving so much information remotely, it's so nice to have that meeting to just fire away some questions that feel impossible to answer in an email. And so it's core not only to the organization side of it, but also to just understanding where the business owner is at and recognizing what their needs are. And so once we had that realization that the meetings were at the very core of our service, we thought, okay, well, what can we be putting in meetings so that I feel like it's filling the space well and continuing to add more value, so that each time they have that anticipation of the meeting. And so several times I'll get in meetings and I'll ask, hey, what's the emotion that you're coming to this meeting with? Because I'm really curious. Are you nervous? do I word things to the point where you're nervous when you come? Like, I don't want that to be it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but a lot of times I do get anticipation as the motion. They're excited just for whatever comes up in the meeting, because it's going to be more than what they know currently. And because I was originally a teacher, I learned that I love teaching some of those basic concepts of finance, of how the financial statements work. And so while that's the core deliverable of our monthly meetings, we call those Know Your Numbers meetings. We decided to go with, as cheesy as it is, a version of the meeting called Grow Your Numbers. And so the Grow Your Numbers meeting actually pulls in a completely different software. And so throughout the year, we're starting to spatter in, or that's not the right word, but yeah, splatter. How about that one?
Too.
Yeah. We're starting to sprinkle in. Yeah,
Sprinkle in. That's good. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. We're starting to sprinkle in some Grow Your Numbers meetings. And we originally called them analysis meetings, but it's not catchy, and it's not, when you say the word analysis, there's a picture of the word analysis that immediately comes to mind, especially with the consumers of the podcast. And I think it's way more nitty gritty than what we're looking to do. And it's not like we can't get there. It's just simply that's not where we want to start.
Yeah.
Right after them learning how financial statements work, I'm not looking to tell you what your pricing should be. That's what we're trying to really do, is build a framework for our customers so that they have a repeatable, scalable business model. And to do that, which also is financially free. So that's a key one too, that I think differentiates us. So that requires us to not only teach them and communicate just the basics of financial accounting, statements, reporting, how numbers talk to them, but it also requires us to have the same definition of business. If we want you to have a repeatable, scalable business model that's financially free, we've got to understand that business is not just operations providing some sort of commercial service. Like, there's more to business in me and Joey's mind. And it has more to do with that personal autonomy. Does it provide you the ability to go on vacation and still produce passive income? That's a little bit more of the definition of business, while also having systems, obviously, to produce that service. So it's kind of a marrying of the two, the very simple definition of a operation with the idea or the picture that it's also providing passive income. And that's where we want our clients to go. Business to us, me and Joey, is not about money. It's about that freedom. And we talk about it over and over, of how much personal autonomy in a given day we have. Like, we went on a business trip, not on a business trip. We went on a personal trip this weekend, but we were able to take the first part of Monday off, in order to just get back into the routine, because it was a quick trip. Like, that personal autonomy of not having to be somewhere right at 8:00, showing up for a boss who, could care less about your weekend anyway. That's not always true, but it's to provide that personal autonomy. So those Grow Your Numbers meetings, especially this year, because we feel like we're going to be able to capitalize and really focus on those now that Joey and I are mostly of the bookkeeping role. The goal would be to help our clients find personal autonomy by being a profitable business owner. And to do that, we're going to help them see and prove, as well as build a framework that shows them they have a repeatable, scalable business model. And then we can start sort of launching into some of the specifics about their business in and of itself. But until we understand what a repeatable, scalable business model looks like, your pricing is not that important to me. Although I totally understand it's a very important piece. It just comes next. It doesn't come before being able to build out that framework. And that's how in my opinion, that's how you evaluate. Because one of the things I was finding in the meeting is, first meeting, they would ask me, am I good or bad business? I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, they think, because I see all these businesses, that I have some top-notch secret about whether or not they're good or bad. And it's like, I see numbers all day. But if we can build a framework together, then you know yourself whether or not you're good or bad. I don't even have to say anything. We've built out this metric or this framework that will allow you to know, hey, I'm working really well within this framework. I understand why this framework is here. If I step out of the framework, I know why, and I know the consequences of that or the risk of that. And so it's kind of like profit first, in the sense that Profit First is a very much a cash framework. And so our grow your numbers, our analysis meetings, if you will, they're going to build a framework that would allow a healthy, scalable, financially free business model.
That's good.
We're not really able to do any sort of analysis until we have a year's worth of data anyway. It's not like we can just look at 1 month of statements. And so that's the key to the whole thing. It's like, okay, if you guys can just stick with it for a year, we can kind of get a little more nitty gritty.
Right.
Because, a lot of times to look to the future, you have to look at the past. And if there is no past to look at, we have no idea what the future looks like.
And that's an important point because, they think bookkeeping is done within a given month. And it's true. Like we have some numbers after a month, but if anyone's promising you really good analysis of your business, like to the core, after, even 3 months, it's like, really, like you're probably throwing a little BS out there just to make yourself look good. And just my personality, I can't do that. Like I have got to form a really, really good opinion about something before I'm willing to give it to you as advice, if you will.
Yeah.
And we've kind of backed off the advice train, although we really do think we're taking what would be considered big level consulting down to the startup, not the startup, but the young in business, the sole proprietor, if you will, who hasn't quite scaled. We really do think we're taking some of that information and making it palpable and delivering it to them, while them not having to pay that sum of money that you would if you were the large business looking for some consulting. So we kind of stay out of the consulting lane. We're more of that framework builders as well as the soundboard within that framework. And we basically have come to the conclusion, considering Joey's investing knowledge and how much the years he spent just looking at statements of all the big corporations, there's few key metrics of what a good business looks like. And as long as you stay within that, move your pricing around, like the experiment. But as long as you stay within this framework, you should be a good, healthy business that can repeat in a different location if you were to do that.
I think key takeaway, we just want our business owners to learn how to think about this instead of us telling you. We don't want to be telling you for 3 years, After a year or two, it's like, okay, you should, if our service is truly valuable, you should actually be able to problem solve a lot of this yourself. And we're here to help you if you need a little more insight. But for the most part, that's the core of the business is just, we want you to know how to think about this. And we want you to because if your trust is in yourself and your decision making, you're going to go a lot farther than if you're just trusting somebody else to, throw things at you.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, I really agree. That's awesome.
Yeah, you can't rely on just other people telling you what to do it's exactly what you're saying. You can't, other people aren't going to get you where you want to go. You have to do it yourself.
Right.
And
exactly.
And that's through learned experience.
And with having, at this point, several different business owners, what I say to one is just not at all going to apply to the other. And yet I can't know the intricacies of you as an individual. I mean, I'm going to learn a lot and I'm going to be able to relay my message in a way that hopefully would make sense to you. But at the end of the day, you're the one that's, we've always said, you're still the CEO, you've got the boots on the ground. I don't own a landscaping business, but if you can understand the framework, and what I mean by that is just, how do these numbers work together? What sort of story does that make of my business? And you will likely need help interpreting that. That totally makes sense. I mean, that's just a skill that someone else probably has a little bit better than you. But if we can take those monthly meetings and over and over repeat some of the same things, hopefully you're starting to build a reasonable framework for how finances work, how they should communicate to you. If I make this choice, how does that affect this and also flow into this statement? And how do I know that's going to affect this state? All of those things start to be there so that you can make your own decisions. And we're just, like I said, we're the soundboard. We're there to just make sure you're thinking through the different ways it could affect your business.
And we've really tried to put together, through the years that we've been doing this, we've tried to put together, the key metrics that make a successful lawn care company. And that's the metrics that we go off of, is the ones that we've seen time and time again. These are the ones that get measured, that get managed, and the ones that actually show results, and because the hardest part is just trying to figure out which ones not to pay attention to. In the age of information, it's not how much information you can necessarily comprehend. It's how much information you can throw out as not necessary and retain the information that's actually pertinent to your business model. So that's kind of what we've tried to do with our analysis meetings, or grow your numbers, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
I can finally think a few sips of coffee later.
Yeah, I see you got your massive Starbucks there. That is
Yeah.
do y'all have one that's close to y'all?
Yeah.
Dude, I had a bit of a stressful morning. I was trying to run to Starbucks right before this, and I was like, man, I need my coffee. Yeah, no, it's pathetic.
Stressful.
It's pathetic. Yeah, but I can't think without coffee. So I was like, man. Anyway, I tried to head up to Starbucks, and I pulled off at the gas station. Our car wouldn't fill up. I don't know what's going on. Something to do with like a sensor or something. So I was like dead on empty. But I was like, man, should I risk it, and just go for the? So my car's dead on empty.
Oh no!
Up to Starbucks and get back with the coffee right before. So yeah, that was the start of the podcast basically. So I was like, oh my god, I'm so stressed. It was first world problems, totally. But
speaking of cars, that is the point of our grow your numbers meeting, and really the point of know your numbers too. It's we call it one of the deliverables within the grow your numbers is what we call a financial dashboard, and it's there to help signal all those main metrics we've decided to take a look at and to prescribe to a good, healthy business. Because, like I said, you can get really in the weeds of, and some people do, and like being a numbers person, and Joey too, like we enjoy that, but we just don't find that to be a reasonable deliverable for everybody that we're trying to help.
right.
And so even though like we can get to some of those pricing topics, or even, per square yard metrics, that's not what needs to be hit on first, and it's not what needs to be noticed first. And so the financial dashboard is those main metrics that, look, if these aren't blaring at you, if they're not creating warning signals for you, you likely have a healthy business as we define business. And so feel free to make some of those different decisions and experiment with them. Experiment with $75 per hour, experiment with $85 per hour. Like neither of those is really going to necessarily create some problems down the road as we see it. So that's what the grow your numbers analysis meetings are. It pulls in a separate software that is going to reveal to you a financial dashboard based on metrics that we talk about and that we continue to have conversations about, to help you know, hey, I'm sitting in a nice position where I've got a framework, I'm working within it, everything is saying go. And as long as I continue to just report back to this financial dashboard and there's no major problems, then, let me just be a business owner and create the business I like. I like $85 an hour so that I can pay my guys $30 an hour, whatever that ratio is. And not every business owner wants that type of business. They want lots of employees rather than a few really, really good ones, whatever it is. I like business owners to be able to be business owners of their own company, because that business is likely creating the life you want, not that somebody else wants.
Right.
And so the goal is to, like you're saying, be your own business, be your own boss, like control your destiny. But in doing that, like you said something earlier about, I don't want to give my opinion on you or on your business in less than 3 months or whatever like that. It's not even really like, I know you didn't mean it there. It's not even really your opinion. Like the numbers don't lie. That's the thing that people don't understand is like you can give your feedback and perspective on what you're seeing, but like the numbers don't lie. And once you go through a year of bookkeeping with the two of you, then it's like, okay, we have some data here. We can at least go back and say, look, for the last 12 months, like things are going to there's going to be a random expense in month 1. There's going to be 2 random expenses in month 3. And then in month 5, you're going to have no expenses. So like you can't go off of that. You need a full benchmark of a year to say, hey, look, let's at least, like that's the very beginning stage. Right. So for guys that are looking for something like this, that it sounds interesting to them, one, you got to get signed up for bookkeeping. Like you got to at least get that step going. But maybe people that have already had their books in order, or they can bring you tons of financial statements or whatever they need. Joey, what are some things that you are? What are you looking forward to in the grow your number side of the meeting? Because you're really running that, I think, for the most part at least, or you're making more of a presence this year.
He's definitely the brain behind it.
So are you asking me like what key performance indicators and why? Is that kind of the question?
Yes. Like what are some things that you're going to be going through and walking through business owners with in this meeting? Because like a lot of people probably don't even know what they are. So like what are some things that you could say, hey, look, these are what we're going to be walking through. Do these interest you? And maybe somebody listening, it will interest them and maybe look into getting these services.
The store is now open at thehardscapeacademy.com. When you visit Caleb and Brittany's website, thehardscapeacademy.com, and you click on the store link, you now have instant access to purchase the training videos, documents, forms, and handbooks that you hear mentioned on the podcast. Plus, you can now reserve your spot at one of the upcoming in-person training sessions at the Almonds new shop. Learn step-by-step alongside our master hardscape professionals. These sessions will include how to install retaining walls, project budgeting, and paver patio estimation, just to name a few. Other sessions feature landscape design principles, horticulture basics, installing seat walls and benches, grill island installation, and so much more. Get incredible hands-on experience for you and your crew. Head over there now to find the exact training session you want, but remember, space is limited, so reserve your slot today at thehardscapeacademy.com.
Right. Yeah. So this is kind of like deeper level analysis. I would say, after we've kind of had a year down and we've kind of gone through, your statements, and you're kind of getting the gist of how they all work together, your P&L, your cash flow statement, your balance sheet. And then we can start kind of narrowing down, okay, what are the key performance indicators that make, all businesses successful for the most part? Like what are the landscaping companies at 5 million monitoring, and, what does success look like for them? They may not even be monitoring, but I guarantee you that they have these 5 metrics under control, if they're at a certain stage in business. So what we look at is we want to make sure you're not carrying too much debt. So that's one of them. We monitor the debt to equity ratio. We make sure we have enough cash on hand to, in case, things go awry and the economy kind of goes down or whatever, you want to have some expenses, saved up. We look at your profit margin. So one of the hardest things, early on in business is to know your actual true profit margin. And me and you talked about this past week.
Yeah.
So we have to put a lot of manual inputs to see what your true profit margin is whenever you're just, a sole proprietor, or if you have, just 1 or 2 crews. It's a lot easier to see a true profit margin of a large business than a small business, because there's a lot of the inputs that aren't, on the P&L.
Which is why this service is so important, because if you don't have somebody helping you do that, you're gonna wrongly read your profit margins.
You're gonna inflate it.
Yes.
Right.
That's kind of what we were talking about.
That's in a good way. He says, even a small business, all the typical expenses that are recognized on the profit and loss, they're there. They're just not accounted for on the P&L. And that's the hardest thing to understand. And it has everything to do with just accounting. Like it just has everything to do with bookkeeping as well as tax time. And so what's really hard for business owners to understand is when you take a draw out of your business and you pay yourself because you're an employee of the business, if that's not on payroll, that's just considered a draw on profit. It has nothing to do with salary. And so what's really important in that first Grow Your Numbers meeting is helping you understand your true profit, which is one of the deliverables of the analysis meeting.
So a lot of businesses don't know their true profit until they're at, 7 figures. And by then it's like, man, I wish I had known this, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, because it's easier to control your profit margins when you're small than when you're big. When your whole business model set up around a certain type of, service that you're providing, and it was never really that profitable, you would have not even known that until you got to a certain point. And by then it's hard to change, it's hard to turn a big ship around rather than a small ship. So we try and get all of our metrics in order early on so that we don't have big problems in the future. That's largely what the service is built around, is just,
and that's
that's what we call it, the financial health score, is because it's largely just kind of coming in for your checkup, making sure there's nothing that's just going crazy that you're going to have huge problems with 5 years from now. So
it's a hard value to sell, because naturally everybody gets to that, let's say 2 million business. Someone comes in as a consulting firm and says, hey, we could save you $1 million in expenses. And they're like, oh man, and then they pay them all the big bucks. Our goal is to catch it really early, but not just catch it, it's to really help you understand it. And that's why the meetings are so core, because time, month after month, 9 months out of the year, you're sitting there with us, hearing us talk about it, being able to ask your own questions so that your brain understands it. Because I know not everyone learns the same way. And so, that's probably one of the hardest parts of selling it, is the fact that we're here to save you those $1 million mistakes, rather than, And obviously we feel like we get the value out of it too in terms of the pricing, but it's not seen in a tangible way per se as it is sometimes when you, like I said, you're larger and those consulting firms come in and save the day.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's 3 that I've covered. So we've got, we're monitoring debt levels, we're monitoring cash levels, like what's a healthy amount of cash to keep on hand. We try and monitor that, where we show you your profit, which is your actual profit. I'm sure you talked about that on your show where, we're not, you're not actually.
It's where everything and everyone has been paid.
Yes. So we're monitoring that and actually showing you what it actually is. And it takes a good year and a half to actually figure out what your true profit is, because we need all that data. Obviously, if we just had summer months, you might be hitting 25% profit margins. If if we onboarded somebody in the winter, they're probably sitting at like -5 or something. So there's another reason we need a whole year right there. It just depends on the time of year, especially with the cyclical nature of landscaping. And then we also monitor gross margin, which we were talking a little bit about that last week with you, but it's basically showing you, after your service has been provided, how much of every dollar do you get to keep, so if after your labor and your materials and your fuel is paid out, which is the key, inputs to your, let's say if you were just going to go out and give an estimate or something, how much of that do you actually get to keep after the service has been provided? So you might keep 50 cents on every dollar. Some businesses keep 40 cents on every dollar. Some keep 60 cents on every dollar. So it's a super important metric, because that's literally all the inputs you would put in for your estimate. And then you have the remainder to pay all your back office expenses.
Right. Which is what a lot of people focus on, their bottom line, but that gross profit is what dictates what their bottom line can be. Like you can only start at that point. I mean, I know people talk about that top line, but if you've got these necessary inputs of labor, materials, and fuel, then you're really starting at that gross profit to be able to dictate then what your bottom line can be after your back office expenses are paid.
Right. It's a lot. In basic terms, it's very, very easy to cut expenses later in business, but it's very hard to change your entire business model later in business. So if we can monitor your gross profit early and get that business model really firing on all cylinders, then it's not that hard to cut expenses later on. You can always just go, pull up all your expenses on the year, your fixed expenses, and just cut them. Like it's just relatively easy to do compared to, oh man, my pricing's wrong, or my routes are terrible, or I have bad relations with my supplier and I'm paying way too much for materials, or whatever the case may be. It's much harder to do that than to just, sit down with a piece of paper and cut expenses, like I'm overpaying for this subscription or whatever.
Yeah. Which is one of the deliverables of the Grow Your Numbers that we're excited to get into this year, mainly Joey, but it's just a expense analysis. It's just like, hey, let's make sure we're keeping tabs on these back office expenses.
Right. And that just relates to let's try and keep you as profitable as possible. And in order to do that, we need to be monitoring your expenses yearly. So, that we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that you're as profitable as you can be. And then the rest is up to you.
I think that's going to be one of the most beneficial things that happen in these meetings, because I know for me, like that's one of probably the largest ways that I lose profit is just unnecessary spending. Like, and it's not even that it's unnecessary. It's just, you're just going, you just swipe the card, you just forget about it. Like it's just things that they're just everyday business is everyday business.
It feels immediate. Yeah. So me and Joey kind of laugh about one certain account. So drink, snacks, ice. When I was first starting out in the landscaping industry, I was like, what do I do with these gas station stops? So, just as a bookkeeper, I just was like, man, I want to take care of them correctly because they're very popular. And I was like, fine, I'm just creating its own account. So drink, snacks, ice. If you ever hear me talk about that, drink, snacks, ice, me and Joey joke about that. But another one we really laugh about is like the supplies and tools, because it's a back office expense. Some of those hammers may not be a good example, mind you, but some of those tools aren't that necessary to your core service.
Right.
They just feel immediate in a given day because, you're tired. You didn't get enough sleep last night. Baby was crying all night. Yep. You need this tool to make this job easier. And we have one client that has really honed in on that, and you can see it coming out in his bottom line. And basically, yes, he has started to put aside a certain amount for tools. Like this is all we can spend on tools. So we've got to problem solve our way out of it if we do not have money in this account. And so he's just basically budgeting that so that it doesn't become too inflated. But those expenses just drop right to your bottom line when you cut them.
Right. And usually if you see, and this isn't always the case, but if you just see a random, assortment of tools being bought all the time, that tells me basically every time is that you don't know your customer because you're just doing random jobs and you need this tool for that. And you haven't really identified who your core customer is, which is one of the key things in business, because then you're firing all cylinders and you've got all the right equipment for each job every single time. And you're literally very systemic and, we do this sort of yard and we have this type of mower for this type of yard. And the guys know how to do just this one type of thing. And then you're just really, developing your system. But when I'm seeing tools bought everywhere it looks like you're just picking up side hustles left and right, which is nothing wrong with that. But when it's like an over exorbitant amount, that's usually, you don't know your customers.
Yeah. And that can happen when you're young and you're just looking for income. But at some point, you're really trying to build that business. You've not identified that core customer, and it's probably going to eventually show in your gross profit margin too.
Right.
In the sense of, your materials, your fuel, and your labor all need to be directed toward the core customer with a core service. And so,
let's talk budget really quickly. So that is not necessary. It's not pertinent. You see a lot of people come in, and you do a lot of books for a lot of people. Do you see the most people that are like seeing the most profit, their businesses are running the most efficiently and effectively, I guess? Are they working off of good budgets?
I wouldn't say so.
No, you'd be surprised. Joey has kind of seen some of those consistencies with our really good businesses. They tend to be able to reinvest their equity. So that's one key area, which is actually kind of hard to do because oftentimes that equity is what's supporting the family side, the personal side. And so then we start getting a little bit of a mix of, well, can your personal side come down? And we don't necessarily want to get into that with our clients, although, eventually we start talking about those things. Yeah. But we hate for it to be like, tomorrow you guys can only eat ramen. Like that's not our goal either. And so
that's a good point. Yeah. Personal budget. Yeah. I would say
business budget is what I mean by that.
Yeah. But what I was saying is with the sole really proprietors and the, guys with one or two crews, largely your personal's tied dramatically to your business.
Yes.
And more of a budget you can live on personally, you can reinvest more of that capital into your business. So
that's a good point.
So that's kind of what Megan was talking about.
Yeah, it may not be the business budget they're really strict on, but their personal side doesn't require a lot of the cash to come out of the business.
Right.
Which
so
in turn,
let's say that if you made $100,000, top line, and you kept, let's say you drew out $50,000, that's 50% of your top line. You don't have a lot to work with in terms of growth.
You're running slim.
Let's say you're running a 7-figure, let's just say you're running $1 million company and you drew out 50,000. That's only 5%. So you have a lot more money to reinvest back into your business. So I do see that in terms of success. A lot of times, guys that live on a personal budget and that can just really just feed their business tons of, investment opportunities and things of that nature. So yeah, that's a good point.
That's good. That's really good. All right. Well, let me ask you this, and then we're wrapping up the show here. I don't want to keep y'all too long, but what is the perfect person to sign up for these services? Like who needs this?
Yeah, good question. So I think our ideal client, so if our core service is going to serve an ideal client so that we can keep systems efficient, have good gross profit.
The same thing you just preached.
Business, yes. Then it would be likely a sole proprietor. It doesn't have to be, but likely a sole proprietor. So one crew, you're at one crew, whether you've just started with that one crew or you've kind of maxed out that one crew and you're hoping to launch into more crews. And here's one of the main reasons for that I found is, like I said at the very beginning, it's very hard to send information remotely about, it can be pretty taxing, and we don't want that to be the main part of our service. We want the main part of our service to be the ability to talk, educate, and analyze, if you will, at this point. And so it's someone whose books, require somewhat minimal. I mean, it's not minimal. There takes a good year to get it all organized, but sole proprietor who has not launched into several different crews, but who would like to. And honestly, they're looking for a profitable, repeatable, not stress-free, financially free business model that they can then duplicate at another location with another crew. Did I say that well?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I would say they're looking to grow though. So it's not like they have to be $1 million business, but they would like to be profitable, financially free, and have a repeatable, scalable business model that then gives them the personal autonomy that they probably went into business foreseeing, or at least picturing.
I've kind of seen in business, in order to be successful in business, you have to be financially literate, and you also have to be a very hard worker as well. So you can't be, if you're one or the other, it's going to show. So usually, I think Warren Buffett says he's a better businessman because he's an investor, and he's a better investor because he's a businessman. So he's both financially literate, and he knows how to do the boots on the ground work. So I think through our service, we really want to partner with people that want to, I can use the old saying, teach a man to fish and he, eats for a lifetime, give a man a fish and he just eats for a day. Yeah. So it's more of that sort of thing. We're really wanting to just, we want to partner with you, and we want to teach you, how to be financially literate, because I don't think that our school system does a very good job of teaching basic finance or anything. And finance in the business world is entirely different from personal finances. So it's even hard to get a good business financial education, in school or anything of that, So that's largely our service, is we really want you to be financially literate in the business world and what it takes to grow a business and not just a job. We want you to have extra money left over so that eventually your business can run on autopilot while you go start another business or do something that you're more passionate about, or work in your community, or whatever you want to do. It doesn't necessarily mean just retire.
Which, let's be honest, I mean, if we're going to be true Americans, that was the backbone of America. That's what they were here searching for. Benjamin Franklin building those businesses, and then learning to invest, and what, lightning and whatever it was he did in terms of just scientific discoveries. Yeah. But what allowed him to do that was the fact that he had a business running.
Right. Yeah. He did. Yeah.
Some of those inventions, we would not have if he hadn't had that business supplying the means to just live.
He retired at like 40, and he went on to be, a masterful politician and inventor and philanthropist, and all that was because he grew a sustainable source of income through his, postmaster general or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we would say somebody who's been in business probably at least a year, and but hasn't, grown to those 4 crews and is trying to turn around some Titanic of a business, but more so they've got the workings of a business. They recognize, hey, I really could take this somewhere and really be a business, not just have a job. And they're looking to boost from that 1 crew to that, let's say $1 million mark. That seems to be just the word we use because it rings a little bit, but they're looking to grow sustainably.
And so if that doesn't explain it well enough for you, you can always just schedule a free 15-minute call, right? Correct. TheLandscapingBookkeeper.com. Go there, and 15 minutes. Like it's not that big of a deal. Go here if you have some more questions, and just schedule it and find out if it is the right fit for you or not. That's the best way to contact you all, right?
Correct. Basically the only way. I mean, you could try reaching out, email, but I'll probably direct you right to that 15 minute.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, all of your stuff coming into one, funneling into one place is a good way to keep up with leads. So that's a good business model right there. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us today. Is there anything else that we haven't gotten to that you wanted to share about today?
No, I feel like that was a good conversation. Yeah, thank you, Jeremiah.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's a lot of value in that, and it's not a pitch fest. It's literally us just talking about like these are things that can change your business, and I'm so looking forward to this year and getting into these grow your numbers conversations, because knowing your numbers comes first, growing your numbers comes second, and when you get to that, it's just like the light at the end of the tunnel is like getting brighter and brighter. Like you finally, and it's like, man, you can really start to see real profit. And that's what everybody wants to see. Like you're in business to make money, not to just money in, money out. Like you want money to stay with you. And so that's what we're here trying to do, trying to help everybody every day. So thank you all for coming on. Thanks everyone for joining in and listening with us today. If you enjoyed the episode, leave us a big 5-star rating and review in whatever podcast platform you're listening to on. That would be a huge help to us. Go follow us on Instagram at Growing Green Landscapes, and check out Joey and Megan Coberly with the Landscaping Bookkeeper. Go schedule a call today. We'll put a link in the show notes if you want to go check that out and sign up with them. That would be awesome. But guys, thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to catching up with everybody here on the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to the Growing Green podcast. It is an honor to have you listening, and we hope you receive valuable advice to help take your business to the next level. Don't forget to follow the podcast so you'll be notified when our next episode drops.